It's homework time. Yes, happy homework time. It is here yet again. Let us start off in the customary manner by placing our names atop our papers. I'll write my name, you write yours. Deal? Great. And let's go ahead and write today's date, because a thing worth doing is a thing done well, or something like that. Our instructions for number 1, if you dare, rename each fraction. So we're given a fraction right here. It's an improper fraction, right? That one too. As a mixed number. Okay. Now how are we going to do that? By decomposing it into 2 parts, as they're going to show us here. And we'll model that same decomposition with the number line and a number bond. Number bond. All right, let's do that. Okay, that was horrible, sorry. All right, 13/4. Let's take a look at our friend 13/4. Now, let's take a moment here. Sorry, let's look at 11/3. All right, so what they do, they took the 11/3 and they said, hey, that's 9/3 and 2/3. Where'd they get that from? Well, think about it. If you skip count, we're talking about thirds, so we skip count by 3s. How high can we go? 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. So that's why it's 9/3, which leaves 2/3 from the 11/3, right? And that's why 3, 6, 9, that's why it's equal, 9/3 is equal to the whole number 3. And then we still have the 2/3, so it's 3 and 2/3. And you notice in the number line, they're going, instead of a little skippity, one at a time, they're just saying, hey, let's just get all this done. 9/3 takes us all the way to 3, and then another 2/3 is 3 and 2/3. So let's do the number line first. What do you say? Because maybe that'll help us to see better what we're going to do with the math. So here's a number line. Let's put arrows at each end. And now we're dealing with 13/4. So let's start at 0. And we know we're getting at least to 1, right? And so we mark the midpoint. We're making fourths here. That's 4/4, right? Okay, well we can go another 4, right? Up to 2. Mark our dots again. 4/4, 8/4, 4, 8, 12. Can we get to 12? Sure enough. There we go. Oops, sorry, that should be a line, not a dot. And then we'll place our dots, however, for the fourths. So 4, 8, 12/4. And then what more do we have? Well, just another 4th, right? And I can mark 4 up here as they did in their sample example there. Okay, but we're only going that 1/4. So when we go as many whole numbers as we can, yeah, we go all the way up to there. That's 4, 8, 12/4. So that's what we're writing, 12/4. That's how many fourths we go there. But we're doing 13/4, so there's one more 4th to make it 13/4. And now that should make it easier to see. I'm not even comment on my 4s anymore. That'll make it easier to see where the math is coming from. So when we take this 13/4, I'm going to do the number bond right below it here. We sectioned out, we partitioned, we decompose 12/4 and 1/4. And we see why, because the 12/4 gives us 1, 2, 3 wholes. So we'll write it out here as 13/4 equals what? Equals 12/4 and 1/4. Now we know 12/4 is equal to what whole number? 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 8, 12/4. So it's equal to 3 and another 4th. So all together 3 and 1/4. Look at that. But there's more to number 1. Let's go see what's next. Alrighty, and in C, D, and E here, we have more improper fractions. We're going to convert to mixed numbers. So let's go ahead and draw a number line for this first one. Put pretty little arrows at either end and start off at 0. Now we're talking about fifths here, Ed. So when we get to 1, how many fifths is that? Well, it's 5/5, right? Then when we get to 2, it's another 5/5. So 5, 10. Can we go another 5? Yeah, we're going up to 16. So 5, 10, 15. And then, we'll just have one more 5th here. So we went 5, 10, 15 fifths to there. And then just a little hoppity to that one last fifth right there. So when we draw our little number bond here, we'll say, hey, it's 15 fifths and 1/5. So what does that look like mathematically? Well, we started off with 16 fifths. And we said, hey, let's decompose that as 15 fifths and 1/5. Now, what is 15 fifths equal to? Well, we know it's 3, right? Because 5 fifths, 10 fifths, 15 fifths. 5 fifths is 1, 10 fifths is 2, 15 fifths is 3. All right, so it is 3, and we can do this little in-between step in our heads now because we smart like that. Instead of writing 3 plus 1/5 equals 3 and 1/5, we can just write 3 and 1/5. Just adding this here. We can tack that on in our heads without any problem. So let's now look at the next one where we're dealing with 15 halves. We'll draw out a number line for this one. Put some pretty little arrows on either end because it is a line after all. And starting from 0. Okay, so now we're dealing with halves. So when we go to 1, that's just 2 halves, right? And then we're going to skip count by 2. So 4, 6, 8, right? 2, 4, 6, 8 halves. When I get to 5, that's 10 halves. I get to 6, that's 12 halves. And if you get confused at any points, go back and say, okay, 2 halves, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oh, we're going up to 15, so I can hit 7 here. And that's going to be 14 halves, and then I know I will just have a half more right there. So all the way down here, woo, that's my whole numbers, right? So 2 halves, 4 halves, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 halves in all right there. And then this little hoppity right here is just another 1/2. And so what I did, to go back over here and make the number bond, I decomposed 15 halves as 14 halves and 1/2. And why did I do that? Well, you'll see in a second. So starting off from 15 halves and decomposing it as 14 halves and 1/2. Well, why did I do that? Because 14 halves is equal to a nice pretty little whole number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 halves is 7. And little way to mentally check yourself, 14 divided by 2 is, 7. And that's not just coincidence, that's the math of it. Fractions actually do express division in ratios. So it's 7 and 1/2. And again, I'm doing that adding step in my head because I'm just putting them together like this, 7 and 1/2. And let's look now at E, draw ourselves a number line for 17 thirds. And put some pretty little arrows on either end. Starting off from 0 now. So now when we go to 1, we're talking about thirds, Ed. So that's 3 thirds. When we go to 2, 6 thirds. When we go to 3, 9 thirds. And again, if you get a little confuddled at any point, go back and say, okay, 3, 6, 9 thirds is where we are. We're going all the way up to 17. And so 4 will be 12 thirds. 5 will be 15 thirds. And now, and double check yourself here. Look, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 thirds. The next one would be 18 thirds, and so I'll write 6, but we're not going to it because we're going to place 2 dots here to make thirds. That last third there, the last 2 rather, are going to be 16 and 17 thirds. So look at it this way. You can go all the way out here to 5. How many thirds is that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 thirds. And what does that leave us out of the 17 thirds? Well, another 2, right? So a little skippity there. is another 2/3. So what we did was we took 17/3 and decomposed it as 15/3 to give us a nice juicy whole number. That's why we're doing all this. And then the 2/3 that we have kind of left over there from the juicy bits. So we'll write 17/3, and what is that equal to? Well, we decomposed it as 15/3 and 2/3. And now think 15/3, well, we can use the number line. It's 5, right? Or you can look at it again and say, oh, 15 divided by 3 is 5. And we can add it with the 2/3 in our heads just fine and say our answer there is 5 2/3. Woo! And through all that, we only finished number 1. Let's go on to number 2. All right, number 2 is pretty much the same thing, except there's a little bit more to do. All right, let's do it. All right, convert each fraction to a mixed number. Okay, that's what we've been doing all along. Show your work as an example and model with the number line. Okay, so same idea. In fact, if you look at the math here, it's similar, but with this little multiplication going on, right? And you look at the number line, it's similar, except we're going from, look here at the bottom, 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, and then doing the leftover bits here. And saying, hey, that's 3/3, 3/3, 3/3, and then the little bits is 2/3. So, and then skip counting by 3/3, 0/3, we go to 3/3, 6/3, 9/3, and then the little bits makes it 11/3. Woo! Zooey mama. Let's try this, shall we? There's just a lot to do on this one, so I'm warning you, it's not going to be pretty. So please no comments telling me it took too long to do that. I know. All right, so we're starting here we're talking about halves in this one. So we'll be starting at 0 halves, also known as 0, right? That's my whole number down there. I just don't have enough room to really space it out quite right. And then when we go to 1, all right, I'm going to write the whole number first down below. Well, how many halves is that? Well, here's 1/2, and this is 2 halves. And then when we go to 2, whole number 2, well, that's another, you see it? 1/2, 2/2, 3 halves, 4 halves. Okay, good. And then when we get to 3, whole number 3 down here, there's 5 halves and 6 halves. We're going up to 13, folks. That's why you notice I didn't put the arrow at the other end because I had a feeling I was going to have to extend that. All right, and then when we go to whole number 4, it'll be 7 halves, 8 halves. And then, oh, you're not done yet. We're going up to 13, right? And when we go to whole number 5, that's going to be 9 halves and 10 halves. And I'm going to have to extend my number line here as I thought I would. And so when I go to whole number 6, that's 11 halves and 12 halves. Well, at least now I'm close to 13, right? There it is. That's going to be my 13th half, and I'm going to cap that bad boy off right there. So each time, so I can go ahead and draw my arrows here. Each time I go 2 halves, each of these is 2 halves. That's 2 halves. 2 halves equal to 1. 2 halves equal to 1. 2 halves equal to 1, and then I have just this little 1/2 here, which I'm going to go ahead and label now so we don't get confused. And each of these, oh yes, each of these we're labeling as 2 halves. Now, if right now you're saying, gosh, this is an awful lot of work. Well, yes it is, and the hope is that you will have this completely mastered and understand it inside and out. So now, what did we do? Now we're going to, this is the number line, right? We got all that beautiful. But what did we actually do mathematically here? Well, we started with 13 halves, right? And now look here, back at our example one. They said, hey, 3 times they went 3/3. How many times did we go 2 halves? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, because it's 12 halves. So we did 6 times 2 halves. And this is a different way of writing this than you've ever encountered here in Eureka land, right? But don't forget, we also had this extra one little half, that 13th half there, plus 1/2. So when we go ahead and multiply this out, 6 times 2 is 12, divided by 2 is 6, or you can just look at our number line and know that it's 12 halves, which is equal to 6. And we can, as we've done before, do this plus 1/2 in our heads. We can do that and just say it's 6 and 1/2. Whoa, yeah, let's do C. Again, I know this takes a while. And I'm going to go ahead and confidently, perhaps foolishly, but confidently put arrows on both ends. We'll be starting from 0. But it is 0/4. We're talking about fourths here, so that's whole number 0. Now when we get to whole number 1, let's make our dots for fourths here. That's 4/4, right? So let's go ahead and do this. We'll do it a little differently on this one. Let's write 4/4 because we're going up to 18/4, right? And when I go up to whole number 2, and I know I skipped something there, we're going to do that. That is another 4/4. I got to make my 4s prettier. Hold up. All right, so now, look, I went 4/4. Okay, so 1 is 4/4, easy enough. And then I went another 4/4, so now I'm at 8/4 for 2 wholes. And then I'm going to go another, mark my fourths, mark my word. So here's another 4/4. And now think about it, we're up to whole number 3 now, right? And how many fourths is it? Well, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 12 fourths. And we're skip counting, of course, because we're dealing with fourths, by 4. 0, 4, 8, 12. That's our numerators. And we're going up to 18. So here is whole number 4, and we'll mark our fourths. And we hop over there. That's another 4/4. And so from 12/4, now we're at 16/4. Ah, the end is near. Woo-wee. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mark whole number 5. And however, I'm just going to place my 4th dots here because I'm at 16/4, right? And so now I need to go another 1, 2, right, to get to 17, 18/4. So there's our arrow, and that's another 2/4, right? And so that brings us to this point, which is 18/4. Yeah! All right, so let's do out the math. I'm going to kind of jack it up here so I leave some room in the corner for myself, okay? All right, so we're starting with 18/4. And that is, well, how many times did we go 4/4? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it's 4 times 4/4. And then we had another 2/4, right? No, what's that equal to? Well, there's a couple ways of thinking about this. We can look at our number line and say, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4 times we did 4/4. That took us to the whole number 4. Or you can just look at this and say, hey, that's 16 divided by 4 is 4. Or you can even think 4/4 is 1 times 4 is 4. Any way you slice it or dice it, it is 4. And again, we can do that addition in our heads and just say it's 4 and 2/4. Well, yeah, that was number 2. Let's go see what we can do with number 3 and finish out this homework time. All right, number 3, it looks a little intimidating, but the great thing now is that we're not drawing out these number lines and hopping and skipping. We're just going to do the math and convert the fraction to mixed number, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's 9 of these to do, right? Hey, it's an array, 3 by 3. But these are going to go pretty quickly, so watch. Here we go. So let's start off. We have 14/3 we're looking at first. Here's how we can look at this. 3, because we're dealing with thirds, so we're skip count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, I can't go to 15, right, because I only have 14 of them. So how many times did I do that? Yes, I said 4 times 3/3. And what did that take me to? 3, 6, 9, 12. So how many are left of the 14? There's 2 more, right? Plus 2/3. So what does that equal? Well, let's see. 4 times 3/3, well, that's 4 times 1. So it's 4, right? And 2/3 is, well, 2/3. There we go. See, I told you these were going to be easier. So let's skip count by 4s until we get close to 17 without going over, like the Price is Right. 4, 8, 12, 16. Can't go 20, right? So 4, 8, 12, 16. So 4 times, I skip counted by 4/4. And what that brought me up to 16. So how many more fourths do I have there, right? 4, 8, 12, 16. To get to 17, there's just one more fourth. And we know that this is the same as saying 4 times 1, right? So it's 4. And then we have another fourth. Boom. All right. Now, here we go. Let's do this one. We're speeding up here. Let's skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. All right. So 5 times, I skip counted by 5/5. And that brought me to 25. So how many more from the 27? Another 2/5. So when we put that together, we say, 5 times 5/5 is the same as saying 5 times 1. So it's 5. And then we have another 2/5. And 28/6, skip count by 6. When I say that, we're really skip counting by 6/6, but I don't want to say 6 every time. So I could say 6/6, 12/6, 18/6, but instead I'm just saying 6, 12, 18, 24 is as far as I can go. So 4 times I skip counted by 6/6. And that took me up to 24. So from 28, how many 6 are left? 28 minus 24? Yep, there are 4 more left. And we're talking about 6. So what that works out to be, 4 times 6, 6. That's the same as 4 times 1. So it's 4. And then we have these 4 6. Beauteous. All right, let's skip count by 7/7. 7, 14, 21. So 3 times we skip counted by 7/7. And it took us to 21. So how many 7ths are left from the 23? There are 2 more, right? 2 7ths. So that means, what's 3 times 1? 7/7 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, of course. And we have then the 2 7ths. And in this one, let's skip count by 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32. 40 would be next. That's too much. So we went 4 times, right? 8, 16, 24, 32. So 4 times we counted by 8/8. And that took us to 32. So how many 8ths are left from the 37? 37 minus 32, yes, is 5. So there are 5 more 8ths going on there. So 4 times 8/8 is the same as 4 times 1, which is 4. You got it. And then we have the 5/8. See how this works? All right, good. Skip count by 9s. Yeah. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. Okay, well, 54 will be next. That's where we have to stop. So 5 times we skip counted by 9/9. And again, I'm not saying 9ths when I skip count. It just gets too garbly. And that took us to 45. So how many more for the 51/9? 51 minus 45? You got it? Yep, there are 6 there. So, and 6/9. So 5 times 9/9 is the same as 5 times 1, right? So it's 5. And then we have 6/9. Skip count by 10s. This is easy. We don't have to do it, right? What is it? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Okay, so 7 times we skip counted by 10/10. And we know, of course, that's going to take us up to 70. So how many more in the 74? 4, of course. Yes. 4/10. And so then this is the same as 7 times 1, right? So that's why it's 7 and 4/10. All right. Now here we go. Last one on homework time. Skip counting by 12s. 12, 24, 36. Okay, 48 would be next, and that's too much. Okay, so 12, 24, 36. We went 3 times. We skip counted by 12/12. And what does that leave from 36 to get to 45? A couple ways you could think, oh, well, it would be 10 if it was 46, so it's 1 less, so it's 9, right? All right, so that leaves 9 more of those 12s waiting at our doorstep. 3 times 12/12 is the same as 3 times 1, so it's 3. And we still have those 9 12s to reckon with. And can you believe it? Woo! Pat yourself on the back, man. That was a rough one. So you did it. You completed another homework time, and I'll see you again next time. It is once again homework time.